Commission?
Recording in progress.
First order of business is the minutes from the combined July-August meeting that occurred on August 16th. Everyone got those electronically from Eddie. Any additions or modifications? Hearing none, a motion to approve as submitted. David, thank you. The second? Anybody? Second. Thank you, Scott. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstained, so 4,
5, 2.
so 3, 0, and 2, that's still okay because there's a quorum.
Yes.
Okay, so on the agenda, the published agenda has Lead Rock Crossroad Development. Applicants graciously allowed us to switch it up a little bit, so we're going to pull the conditional use agenda item for 45 Mainland Road to the top of the agenda. And then we'll play it by ear from there, however they behave. How's that?
So Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin. It's nice to see you. You remember we did a text amendment some time ago, I think it was last summer, to allow a museum use on this property. My client is here. They have been utilizing this space. Oh, it is unbelievable. I've been inside. They do recording of music. They have lots of memorabilia, synthesizers and equipment from bands I knew growing up. And the idea was to repurpose this space. This is an industrial zone. It was, the size of the property has changed due to the reconfiguration of the surrounding roads. It's triangular in size. It's a hard reuse, but they miraculously came up with something that works, this museum use. So as part of the text amendment that we worked out with the planning commission, with staff and with the supervisors, a museum is by conditional use. So we have filed the conditional use. We will go in front of the supervisors to have a hearing. We do have, we submitted 2 plans, phase 1, which is in front of you, which consists of no changes to the property. There are existing nonconformities with the property that we would like to just utilize and set in place. There is a phase 2. They'd like to do an addition off what I call the front of the property. It's towards Summingtown. Yeah, there it is. It's shaded right there. With that, we did show additional parking along Mainland. We understand that parking within the front of the building, although now it's an existing nonconformity and therefore legal, this plan shows additional parking spaces, which would obviously be more parking within that front yard. So
Technically, what is the front? Technically speaking.
well, we have 2 fronts. We have both summits under the code, whatever faces a street is considered the front, but the entrance, if that's your question, is on this side where the addition is proposed. Yeah, the bottom side. But we know we're going to have to sort through those parking spaces because they would be new parking within the front of the building. We're not looking for that to be blessed through this conditional use process, and I'm not asking for the planning commission to consider that either. I'm just going to kick the can for when that addition comes in. We'll submit an application and deal with any additions at that time. We don't need the parking under the code. There is a requirement in the museum use by conditional use that we provide adequate parking off-site for events in the event we need them, because we meet the zone code. But if we have a crowd and there's an event here, we obtained an easement, an agreement with the church across the street to have people park there. We have an additional 75 spaces. One of the comments in both Michelle's letter and the county has to do with how do you get people safely back and forth? We don't want them running over Mainland. And Vince told me that they have shuttled people before from the Holiday Inn. So we would agree to do some sort of shuttle service to make sure people aren't running across the street. So no land development, no changes in phase 1 for the use. Phase 2 will address at that time. It looks like just an addition, and I wouldn't want to go to the zoning hearing board for the additional parking, but we'd have to see if that's the case or not.
Questions? Scott, I know you had some thoughts and provided those an event.
Yeah, so A couple thoughts I had, just because of, although it's not part of the village, actually, correct, it's not technically part of the village, but it is village-ish.
Right on the end.
Yeah, is it in the village commercial? It's industrial, but it's in the village commercial zone?
No,
Right, part of it, part of it. Yeah, the second part,
Yeah.
part of it, yeah. I'm interested in the sidewalks and the pedestrian access. And I know you had to come to an agreement with the church and everything, and the shuttle bus and everything. I was curious, since the church owns all the way from the sidewalk to Store Road, is it possible to put a pedestrian sidewalk between the entrance? And there is actually, there, between Store Road and the driveway entrance, where there is actually a sidewalk started there.
Where is?
Right, that's
Right there.
right, go down to the right there. It's that right there, go up, right there, yep, that's Store Road.
Okay.
And that's about 500 feet along the road there, that's.
You mean to have a crossing across?
And then you do a crosswalk across Mainland Road.
It's an off ramp? Is that what you said?
But there's a stop sign there, there's a stop sign there.
Someone's asking.
And that's right, but
Okay.
that's where the sidewalk would end, and you have this crosswalk there at this stop sign.
So Scott, I took a look at your rendering. It was very helpful and it got me thinking, and I'll ask everybody else to chime in. I don't know that we can ask the
Right.
supervisors to make a condition that they try to get an off-site partner to install
Sidewalk.
sidewalk. I'm also not sure, every now and then I'll cut down that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we want to put pedestrians even with a sidewalk on Store Road, so I'm a little apprehensive about that. What I did appreciate about your plan, and I think we should consider making a recommendation that be part of the conditional use approval, is the sidewalk that ties it back to the mainland and
Right.
provides the pedestrian access within the village. That's within their control, and I
Right.
think it's also, if you're gonna put this use, I think it's appropriate to do that. Plus, I just assume the natural linkage between a restaurant and a museum and potential
Yep.
event space is so key. We don't want people driving a couple hundred yards between them. We just want them to park once and walk to dinner.
Right,
and
after
walk
dinner,
back.
walk to
Yeah.
the museum, right?
So that is something I think.
Where from? Could you, from far left of the plan, above
Yeah.
the house? And then
Behind it, yeah.
do that?
Either way, but yeah, I mean, I think. So like when I look at it, it's hard to see if there's sidewalk improvements on Mainland Road.
Yeah, I don't see any
Yeah,
sidewalk
I
there.
don't either, I agree. So something that,
So what I was thinking, I looked at the apartments where I came here tonight, and there's sidewalks along the frontage there on Mainland Road. And to continue that down into this development or this plan as well would be a preference of mine.
agreed.
So this is the main one in.
No, I
think
think
you
you
should
should.
less than the
That's next, at least the parking lots to take it behind, but
Yeah, it still can't quite totally.
Yeah, well,
Well, no, you have it on a third party's property.
so
Because they don't
Right,
let up
right.
to the creek side.
oh, there is a
Property.
property in there, even in the back?
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Well, I guess what I would say, John, is now's our chance. And I think people are gonna walk whether there's a sidewalk there.
Good for you.
So.
No, you're-
Sure.
Yes,
So
somewhere.
you want it here?
So you're gonna have a parking lot here eventually, phase two, right?
Here.
Yeah, so we connect that parking lot up into this somehow.
Along the frontage though.
No, the back here, whatever you call that.
is.
But that- that's- Right.
This is us here. And this will be merged with this.
Right.
We don't know this. We don't know this.
Then you have one little road. Main road, that one property.
Well, like I said, I think it's only a chance to get it, and people, they get tired of having to go across the lawn, eventually they'll try to figure out how to interface. I think planning on it completely just sets us up for all sorts of problems down the path, down the road.
Yeah, there should be some kind of pedestrian connection. I don't know.
They'll kind of
show the back of
That's what he said.
Really
We do that.
I would, it's, hey Stephanie.
Parking.
Okay. I tried, but I could not find the right links. We have a trail and sidewalk plan that we've been working on. Which I think you're familiar with and. Actually heard something.
Yeah.
They honestly don't know though what we had here. I really,
It looks like you only have a shoulder there.
well, that it's very, very tight. There probably should be some kind of lower connection.
Yeah, John, we're not, I mean, it doesn't
That's what I thought.
show up in the village.
I think if anything, we were thinking you would go the opposite way, and tie into, the corner, which actually is Talminson Township. The townhomes, because there's a trail. that
Oh,
connects
right.
there.
From a trail standpoint.
But that's not connecting in.
See, and that's kind of where I was even going. If you extended that, up to the church intersection there. So you put that sign right there, see the dotted line then heading up into that neighborhood, whatever that is. That really that free.
That free.
Is that free? Yeah. Off the line, right? And then that connects you into that whole.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like cross something.
We're trying to get in the pocket.
Go.
I've heard people come flying down that hill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, if everybody's open to it, I mean, I think, like Scott's point is. You want people to walk in the village, there is no walking opportunity now, we should. Try to get this opportunity to create some pedestrian interconnection between Mainland Inn, the new rental units that are going in. And this location. How they do that is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the gist.
is. Hey Vince, Vince. Do you know how much room is in between Mr. Landis's house and the road? I mean, I know Rich's building, the one where we were, that's pretty close to being right on the road. I'm just thinking if you could just sort of, thread something in front of him, and then you could use the old driveway, because they're gonna get rid of that. That was part of their approval.
And that's
But,
fine, even
you know,
along the front there.
It'd be enough to squeeze at least a 3-foot sidewalk.
I think you can do that. I think there's like 10 feet of space there.
We don't have a street.
It
It looks like 11 to 12 feet,
Pedestrian.
like 11 to 12 feet from the front of the house to.
10 feet, but like you said, if there's a tree there, then
Yeah,
you can fit around the tree.
Look at it. I don't think you can.
I mean, it has a sidewalk in front of it. Yeah,
Just a little piece.
they all have a little piece of it until you get down to the,
To the creek.
well, no, well, yeah, but you can come the other way, right? From the creek all the way down to like this.
Yeah, I think there's a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right. There, the house, that house, yeah.
There's a sidewalk. But this is the driveway. I mean, we can make the recommendation. Try to the best of their abilities to make it happen.
So, is everybody, does everybody put that recommendation?
Yeah, thanks.
Any other issues, concerns?
No.
And to recommend approval with, recommendation for condition of.
Yeah, we should.
So what was the condition that was articulated?
That you try to create a pedestrian connection between your property and the Creekside development.
Creekside was,
That's the mainland inn plus the new.
That's- okay.
That WB.
starts it, but out the driveway to the left, we were talking about the neighbor next door. Okay,
And I'm just, I'll just add to the best of your ability, because I realize. there's
yeah,
somebody
that's.
else's- Right, there's somebody else's property.
But
But you can look at it, you can think about what would be at least maybe the best place to build something to install it or something.
We will look at it in good faith.
All right, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the conditional use. 45 Mainland Road. With the recommendation that the applicant. Try. To create a pedestrian connection between. Proposed museum property and Creekside development. To the best of it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
why don't you take a break, we'll let the good people for Red Rock Cross go. Andy, you're done. Thank you.
Andy.
Every month.
See you guys.
Yeah, speaking frankly, I mean, I can kind of, even if the intermittent party won't concede, I hope the supervisors kind of push them to do it, and then eventually that homeowner will want to interconnect, because they'll be tired of people walking across.
See, I'm also just wondering what they want to do here, if a connection down here.
Well, and Scott in his rendering showed also like a backlash. right?
That's what I'm thinking,
Right.
you can go lower.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Red Rock Crossroad Development.
Extend the back, it's a little curved.
It is a little. It's an odd building. It's pretty.
You pass it to Kennedy.
Great.
Table two things. I'm handing out a revised waiver letter, just so you can follow along with this section. So it's a draft letter. My name is Andy Lincoln, with Forestone Consulting Engineers. We've got, check contract. He's the applicant, the partner on this project. We're at the intersection, we're near the intersection of Water Road, and Hartsville Pike. This is in the Village Commercial Zone District. We presented this plan a couple of years ago as a sketch plan. Some of you probably heard of that, you may recall this. Nothing has really significantly changed the plan since that time. I think we were in favor of it. When we first presented that to you. We had initially proposed off of Harleysville Pike, an emergency access. Where there's an existing, planned driveway for prior subdivision. What's changed is we're now proposing that as a one-way directional only in access to the property. Everything else I think is pretty similar, same. Other than a reconfiguration of the lots to propose a consolidation of the two lots that my client owns. So this was originally two lots, or is two lots. There was a subdivision of the property on the corner back about 15 to 20 years ago, I believe, which created a residual residential lot off of Crossroad. That plant proposed one single family dwelling. And a stormwater management basin was proposed there and installed. still there today. And that, collects stormwater from the property on the corner. And it was proposed to handle stormwater for that single family residence. This is obviously a more intense use, more impervious coverage. So we would be replacing that stormwater basin with additional stormwater management to the south or behind the parking area shown there now. The second property was also subdivided around that same time from an existing home on Harleysville Pike. There was a garage at the end of the driveway that you see there in place now. That's been demolished. The plan called for another single family home there on a flag lot. And that was never constructed. I think it was ever. It was never sold, I guess. You bought that after something?
Yes.
Okay. So the plan now, instead of doing 2 single family residences, as was proposed on that. Our subdivisions. We think a better use of these lots. Put this village commercial on the edge of the village commercial district. A nice transition kind of to the R1 district, I believe that is. West. Is 3 townhomes. Not too intense of a residential use. Super high-end homes, hopefully affordable, and probably a good use in the village, we think. So several issues to discuss tonight, have to do with basically circulation of traffic through the site. These driveways are proposed. And a couple of zoning issues too. I guess I'll start by going through Michelle's letter. We have letters from Michelle, Stephanie, and Claire. And I'm just going to touch on the big issues in these letters, and I can put everything tonight, if that's okay with you. Michelle's letter, it's okay, yes. Zoning issues on the second page. I'll start with number 2. Says the maximum permitted density for the consolidated lot area would be 5.53 dwelling units. We're gonna ask for clarification from Mike on this as to whether we should consider the consolidated lot when calculating density, or as we've done here, and we've discussed this, I think, with Mike before. If we consider the 2 lots separate, we'd be allowed a density bonus for shared parking and driveways. And that would get us to 11 dwelling units allowed. Even if these lots were separated and houses configured differently, I think we would still qualify for shared parking and a bonus then to get us to about 10 dwelling units. So we think a better plan is just to consolidate the lots at this point. And hopefully maintain that density bonus. I think Mike needs to clarify the clarification of it.
So if you didn't get the bonus, you wouldn't be able to have the 6 dwelling units.
Not in the current configuration. If we let lots separate, we could adhere to would be a rear yard setback on the flag lot up at Harleysville Pike. And you'd have to squish those 2 units. The third twin back there to fit within the setbacks. Going zoning, of course. And technically that would work as a plan. It just would not be consistent from twin home to twin home. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do something like that.
No, but in order to get a density bonus, you need a house that was built before, existing house that was built before 1940, or 2 contiguous lots need to share parking. They have 2 lots, but they're making them into 1.
So our opinion is the spirit of the ordinance that being met.
Right. To me, it does.
Yeah, I think the point is to take 2 pre-existing lots and share the parking. If you end up then doing a deed of consolidation, I don't know that then nullifies the density bonus.
That's what we asked Mike.
Yeah.
to set.
That would be fine.
Okay,
Thank you, Mark. Next comment, number 3, has to do with existing trees in the front yard. As part of the prior subdivision, street trees were planted. Approximately where the 2 twin homes on Cross Road are shown. According to zoning code, we are allowed to remove trees of a certain size. In the front yard. Again, we need to defer to Mike on this. I believe we've been told in the past that the current zoning for the DC district, which has changed in the last couple of years, allows us to put those homes basically right on the right-of-way line at this point. We're allowed to look at existing buildings within 300 feet of property within the same district and match that front yard, essentially. So what we're looking at here is the property on the corner. Styles property. And that's obviously up against the road. So farthest we can go towards Cross Road. It's right on the right-of-way line. We think that's appropriate for the village. You know, put these kind of homes as close to the road as possible, maintain that sort of village feel that I think you guys are looking for. But to do that, we have to remove the trees that are in place at this time.
As long as you provide the required.
It will replace, yes.
That one still meets the intent.
Okay.
would you be matching what is across the street approximately? Or would you'd be farther back?
I think it's farther back because prior subdivision, that right of way was dedicated to the ultimate right of way at Cross Road.
Yeah,
definitely
across the
further
street.
back.
I'm looking at it, yeah, it'd definitely further back,
The ones across the street are right there.
right there.
Yeah.
Now, the home next to you is fairly far set back, and I think we've talked about. And the county's helped us in this conversation about how to sort of graduate, you know, setbacks to be kind of. Interspersed between the two. If you were to push it back to retain those trees and be a little bit further back from the road, what does that do to your parking and driveway configuration?
Pushes it pretty far back towards the rear property. Because to save those trees, you need someone helping buffer around the trees. Or they're just gonna die anyways, if you start to grade, close to them. As long as you push it back towards the middle.
Which for the excess parking would be a problem, but I think for the driveway and then the access to the last 2 twins, that's where it starts to become problematic, right? You don't have the turning radius anymore.
Right.
Right. Okay. So just, Mike, just put some door replacement. Calculation, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Numbers in the ordinance regarding placement chips.
And that is, I think. Comment 4 and comment 5 will complies. 6 has to do with street lights. According to comment from Michelle, a street light is required at each driveway intersection. I think she's asking for 1 within the site.
One in each driveway, the one way and. Cross Road.
So we'll provide what's necessary there. Question for you is what is necessary there? We've got privately.
Where's the mailbox gonna be? Cause there probably should be a light at.
I would think we could do a shared mailbox. At the end of the driveway, most likely.
Somewhere in the center of the property. Yeah, I think there probably should be some light there.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
That would be, the mailbox would be internal in that parking lot area. Yeah, right. What's that? Oh, yeah, yeah.
Whole street.
Yeah. Does the planning commission want a typical street light at the driveway entrances? Internal, we can work out what's required for that, but.
Yeah, actually, it'd be nice if they all matched. But yeah, probably some kind of. What Paul had to,
14 feet, but I have to check.
I think ours, it's fairly, well, but it's fine, it's.
Okay.
Yeah, what, I mean, Stephanie's letter refers to the walkable lead rod,
Yes,
which eventually talks about hardscape street lighting, planning,
Yeah.
so. These almost seem to be a perfect spot to begin to introduce that into the lead rod.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't have time.
Outcome study is going to be some kind of standards. Towards getting some consistency and details such as that. So. We can talk further about the study where we're at that. But it's definitely some.
We can just think that we want the street light and encourage to be consistent with the design standards of the walkable lead rod. Yeah.
And the crossroad apartments that are being built
Yeah.
on the other side,
Yeah.
do they have, I assume they have streetlights too, right? They're defined.
In the driveway.
And that should be consistent, hopefully, I know. That was done earlier. Yeah, see what they have there.
Number 7. Refers to trash enclosures. Plan to just use toters, if you go on this side, maybe still in garages. But I think an exterior trash enclosure is necessary here. There should be plenty of room in those garages, people to keep toters. Specify garage size, future plans if we need to.
Will there be a homeowners association?
Yes,
So will there be a single provider for trash collection?
I assume so.
Okay.
Yes.
That'll be difficult to find. I'm just as being a board of a homeowners association right now, we have 89 homes. And we can't find anybody, all the people that service garbage say we're too small, they don't want to deal with us. That's 89 homes.
Wow.
So what then do they come in to do individuals?
Now, we're gonna find somebody, but it's you gotta pay a lot more than you wanna pay. Now, on the other hand, when you're at 6, you just might be able to find somebody private and local and not have to have one of the. That might actually be easier than 89 for me.
Did you say they were gonna be in each garage?
Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna show
We can check that.
what I asked, the typical building,
Sure.
okay, and where they're gonna be so that. There's actually room inside the units for garbage rather than. More than just for a car,
They're currently showing it, I think 25 feet deep.
Okay.
Which is plenty of room for
okay,
trash. Yes. If not, we'll show something external that changes. Moving on. Subdivision land development issues. Comment 1 about providing turning templates. I apologize for this previously. We did look at trash trucks running through the site. And that's about what these drivers are designed to handle.
Did you try fire trucks?
To an extent, yes.
Because if you're coming into 1-lane road there's no way we're gonna make that first turn.
I agree.
And then if you go through yet, keep going, we're gonna have a problem coming around this building, heading back. Out towards the last building, out towards Crossroads, because there's an island or something that comes out. And it's gonna be tough to make that swing. And then this is gonna be tough, we're gonna have to go up on the curb here to get out. And even coming in's a problem.
But we're anticipating widening some of these drive aisles and parking areas.
What are you using for curb?
8-inch.
Good, just so it's not Belgian block. They chew up our tires. We're finding that out, that
Needed some smaller trucks for better drive.
no, we have good drivers. No human can make these turns. But it'd be nice to get that settled before final approval, because we've had one recently we went down with the truck recently and we can't make it through there. Well, the end, it's our ladder truck and that,
42 feet.
yeah, they have all of
42
our,
feet, 6 inches.
yeah. But if you want to get a ladder to ladder these buildings back way off the road, you're gonna. That's,
The intersection will get a lot bigger.
will we get a guarantee on that, that we can fit through there?
Oh, yeah, they'll have to show the truck templates. It'll be,
I thought we had the same thing on the other development, it doesn't work. Mainland,
Creekside?
yeah. We were down there recently trying to get to some of them, we can't.
Shall we have a template?
no, I just know.
Oh, what?
Stephanie.
I sent you a copy of it, didn't?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's all the complete specs for it.
Yeah, that's,
We use the specs.
You might just have to soften some of those turns, both in.
Yeah.
Entryways and.
Especially the one on the one-way road, that is next to impossible. As it is now.
Right, that's about one that's on 45 feet there. Again, bringing those. Radii pretty far back. Watch it from it.
All right, so.
Comment 2 has to do with the former subdivision, the Chiodo subdivision. That's the one from Harleysville Pike that created the flag lot in the back. That plan showed a shared access easement for the existing home on Harleysville Pike and the proposed home on the flag lot. And the question is if we should be providing that shared connection at this point with this development. If you consider the effects that has on traffic moving through there. This is currently shown as a one-way entrance. We need to make that a two-way entrance. At least up into the shared access point. Quickly show 32. This is the prior subdivision plan. This is the shared driveway, which would replace the existing driveway from Harleysville Pike.
so once that flag lot was developed at some point in the future, the existing driveway off of Harleysville Pike was supposed to be removed. So that there was one entrance along Harleysville for that flag lot, existing lot. Why aren't we using it?
Where would you propose the connection be made to the other lot?
So
Back of the flag
if
or?
we were to complete this, so it's shown the connection would be towards the beginning, towards Harleysville Pike.
The lot one that's shown on that plan
Yes.
is your lot,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So.
Our lot is this way.
Yeah.
They may. Be required to do, and may want them to do, is to maybe work out an agreement to have that existing one-way driveway that they're proposing be the entrance for the existing lot.
Would that solve a couple of problems? Because then you could make it wider, which will address Joe's issue around the turning radius of getting in. So now you got a wider entry point. You provide access to that first lot coming in and retire a second driveway out on 13.
Absolutely.
But wait, does this maintain one way all the way? I mean, how does the guy get back out? Does he have to go through the whole development?
The two-way movement up into the shared connection point, and from there, you get a one-way. Unless you.
I mean,
the thing the way, but then you have exiting traffic. You know, the lot 16 is.
Definitely too, because you don't want left turn.
Yeah.
Left turn coming out of there.
Well, and one of the other things in the village is the cut throughs on the other corners that have the connections like this, and that's an issue that has been vocalized. So if that is two-way, then we start. Traffic.
So you'd like him to look into that further?
I think we plan to make it a two-way to the connection point and continue one-way scheme from there. That's forward.
There's no issue with a left in from Harleysville Pike?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if we could move to Stephanie's review and just,
We can.
I'm trying to. What, I get the one way, how do we decide one way in is better than one way out?
I mean, they're gonna have to go through and that permit process for this access, well, actually both accesses, because they're both state roads. So they're gonna have to demonstrate site distance for the left in movement, they're gonna have to demonstrate. If they were to have egress movements, they're going to say this out would be.
Like you said, if you do it out. Then you got a lot of people cutting that corner. You almost force them to do it. Yeah.
They need
T-room.
it is a recurring theme, people wanting to avoid the site and the intersection. And I think if you end up having that movement here, you know what the queues look like on Crossroads. Moving out to the light, it's a good chance that you're gonna sort of proceed with this location too, and we're really working to try to figure out how to fix it on the other corner, so it don't look like created on this.
Fair enough. So the idea, I'm just saying it out loud, so the idea would be. Two-way movement to the shared access point. One way in beyond that, and it won't take long for the Lower Southford Police to know the person that lives in that house is the only car that should be coming out that driveway.
Ideally.
I guess one other consideration, Claire and I were just briefly talking about it, I mean. Is there an issue, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, if it was just an emergency access. And then that existing traffic would stay.
Issue with that, Jack, is that. I think that really limits your circulation of. Delivery vehicles, landscaping vehicles. Fire trucks potentially, that would then have to turn around somehow within the site, back out onto Crossroad. Our opinion, it's a lot easier, make a loop, so those folks learn. how to do that.
Wetlands at the intersection. When they have agreed to move around the intersection. They will come around through the intersection. Not necessarily see. That approaching traffic.
Wait, that left.
Now.
Yeah.
Be
perfect, right?
There today, and they make that in and out today. I don't know that it has to be documented. Be part of the permitting. So, and maybe it's fine.
How close are you to the impervious surface maximum?
Not very close, but doing stormwater runoff. Which is more of an issue at this point. I think we're about 40% coverage, allowable 80%.
Because if you've got the ability, I think, as everybody's talking about it, the idea of creating an internal loop that'll allow you to make a turn and head back out and then make the 113 access emergency access only. Ultimately sounds like that's probably not a bad solution.
Yeah.
It's no disrespect to your development. It's 6 homes.
Yeah.
Trying to accommodate 6 homes versus the traffic on 2 of our major arteries in the township, you just have to find a balance for those competing interests. And I think a loop might be the way to do that.
I don't think you'll have room to make a loop that accommodates.
What are you
any
gonna
kind of
do?
large
Do it around the
vehicles.
basin kind of thing? Get trucks to.
What's that, Scott?
How would you loop it? What were you saying?
Well, my thought is you're coming in off a crossroad.
Yep.
Then you come over to the two that are sitting by
Yep.
themselves, and then you're looping back around and going back out the driveway that brought you in off of,
You
Cross.
you make you just cut it and make a triangle.
Which might, maybe there's a way you could do it to also help Joe out. So. It basically just comes across here.
Yeah, you go back out.
So that you know, Joe no longer has to worry about make that part because he's got a circulation inside.
And that's what it is, basin in the middle there, is that what a basin is?
Yeah,
Right, so it's a loop around the basin essentially. You're putting a driveway around the basin.
it's an above ground basin now that they're
Right.
gonna make it underground.
Yes.
Can you do that?
And loop it around that.
Given-
We got to look at how that affects the grading off the back of the property. You know, depending on where you put it. You may end up with just a huge paved rear area in that case.
Well, why don't you take a shot, because if you do that, then you no longer have to interconnect with that other home. Because now they'll just, just emergency access and they'll just keep their driveway, so it might solve some other problems that you have, as well as. If you end up having to play around with the turning radius for fire engines, some of the other stuff, you may find you're heading in that direction.
I think with the fire engine especially, to make that turn. You're gonna be left with no green space behind these houses. I'll just say that.
Right.
When you look at a concept, if you like. To move along, then. Comment 3 has to do with the one-way drive. Thanks, Michelle's there. The question on that, if it were a one-way driveway,
Yeah,
I think we'd want a waiver of this, for this section,
like a break.
to allow less than 15-foot driveway.
Why don't we revisit that after you?
Yeah, the radio says. Item 5 has to do with parking behind unit 4, which is the far. Right unit. The crossroad. 15-foot setback to parking is required on that boundary. We'd like to entertain a waiver to allow where it's at now, which is 10-foot setback. So that goes coincident with, back in the garage there. To counter that, we can shift the entire building over 5 feet, you're making those buildings closer and closer together. Which is not great in my opinion, it could be done with better designs to. Get a waiver, leave that at 10 feet along the property. And that is more intense use on their property line. Yeah, thoughts on that?
I'm okay with that.
The next is item 6, curb and sidewalk required for parking lots. We'd ask for a partial waiver of that as well. We're not showing curb around the entire curve of the lot, we have stormwater running down. Off the back. We just don't think curb is necessary for some of these areas around the back side of this property, given the small. Size of the parking area for the nature use.
But you'll put bumpers or some sort of,
We can do that, yes.
or at least that they, on the parking spots there.
Yeah, and we do have curb along the driveways. Well, that's to collect stormwater, down to the back. Skipping along. To item 12, look at that is street trees. The code requires street trees. Not only along. Public roads, but also internal access driveways. For developments of 5 dwelling units or more. Again, we looked at this, I think a waiver request is appropriate to provide, say, half. Of the street trees required on the driveways. Rather than both sides as the ordinance requires. It's a lot of trees for the size of the site. Especially if we keep adding pavement to these driveways. There's not actually that much room for large trees. We do plan to supplement landscape, with a lot of infill shrubs and smaller trees and screening of the parking areas. The large trees were the problem. We also have utilities and things like that that conflict with large trees, underground stormwater basins. So we'd like to ask for a partial waiver of those street trees along driveways.
What's the separation between the driveway on Cross Road and that first plan?
Well, that's less than 5 feet.
Like a driveway in Roxborough, that's really, and there's no trees between the house and the driveway, I'm just gonna feel like you're literally riding alongside the building.
Well, it's gonna be 5 feet minimum. And that's to address another comment from Michelle. But we need a 5-foot radius on the little island into the driveway there.
Right.
Actually, it's like 10 feet of width. 2 5-foot radii would be 10 foot just right there. So again, those buildings are getting closer together. We can probably shift the driveway a little bit. Go back to there as well.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with the waiver of the trees on that side, as long as we can maybe get that a little bit wider, I think they're right next to that house. It's gonna feel right next to that house, so
And
maybe we can distribute that spacing a little better, but not put trees in between the house and the driveway.
Sure.
And that's 15 feet off the property line. Driveway, so that is.
I think it's 15 or 17 feet. Currently. It's about 17 feet.
How close can you go to the property line? Not even.
I think it may be 15 feet because that's a different district on that side.
You can steal a couple feet there if you need to.
Yes. Comments on that?
We can see what you come up with there.
Is there anything else major you want feedback on, because I think we're gonna be seeing you again.
Couple more waivers we can get back to, one for stormwater pipe size, that's pretty easy one to think.
That'll be the jig that made that.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna submit, every night, you're gonna do a waiver request letter.
Yeah, well. Basically, the letter I provided tonight is a draft. Revised waiver request letter.
Whatever you,
Okay.
that waiver.
It addresses most of what we talked about here. I think we covered Stephanie's issues as well.
I just want to point out that we did provide some information with regard to the walkable letter and study that is ongoing at this time. So we had a status earlier this week. There will be a brief to the planning commission with this plan. Joint November, December. There's also a public meeting. So we put in here that the material is available for you, that we can put on, with regard to some of the items that are within the area that's. And you do have some waivers that you were identifying, and I just want to fill the planning commission in on discussion that we had. And in the sense that we understand that the one thing has to figure. But the Saldo currently requires 11-foot lane 8-foot shoulder, 11-foot lane 6-foot shoulder. We agree as a committee that that's a bit extensive for the village area. We understand that, but having no shoulder is also not desirable based on the discussions we've had with the walkable letter act study. So somewhere in between zero shoulder, which I think is what is being shown on the current plan, to something less than what is the current cell zone requirement, is probably something that the walkable letter act study is going to move forward with regard to a recommendation.
What would you say a minimal shoulder? Just as a,
It
Rough
it
idea.
came up in discussion on Monday, that basically, obviously, 5 foot is for a bike lane / shoulder. However, we also understand within the village for itself, there's going to be some share of the road conditions. So again, there was not a determination made from the committee with that discussion, but that is what's going to be forthcoming here in the next month or two as we continue to develop the study. Mike, if I missed anything, feel free to add. But recognize that nothing is not really what the village board is looking towards. But also 6 to 8 feet may be a little bit on the too wide of a side for a shoulder within the village board. So we understand somewhere in the middle is probably what's going to be recommended as part of the walkable letter. I guess with regard to other components of walkable letter act, there are concept plans being developed for different pedestrian connections, so I do note that, one of your waiver justifications talked about no connectivity at this time, which we understand there's no connectivity at this time, but there will be connectivity moving forward, so we do want to make sure that that is considered as we continue.
So there was, again, talk about cut through traffic, again, cut through pedestrian traffic as well. You can buy a sidewalk out to 15. And residents of these homes necessarily having people cut through the back of this building. But we will certainly provide a connection from all the homes out to Crossroad. That have been. We can revisit that again in the future.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's cutting through to where, but I do think.
Well, right now, no.
But we gotta chip away at sidewalks and. You know, that's part of the priority. So I guess. I think the general feedback, all the comments that you heard is, I think you just need to really figure out your internal. Vehicular circulation, and that may cause you to have to soften some of those curves. You may have to add some impervious. If you can figure out a way to make the 113 access. Emergency access only, I think you're helping yourself, and I think we look favorably upon that. Good. We can do that. All right, thank you.
This Joe, what kind of emergency access do you want? Do you want it paved with bollards, removable bollards? Is that-
Yes,
50 feet.
Okay,
yeah, not the one where you have the,
like
Paper
Rittenhouse,
glass
like in Rittenhouse, you don't like what's that?
no, because we'll never use that, because at the time where if it's foul weather or something like that, we won't be able to tell exactly where it is and it,
Okay, so I cut you off, I'm sorry. So what were you saying? What type of bollard do you want?
removable that we could,
Removable
yes,
to get out?
yes, not the locked one, because we've run into
Okay.
problems with that too.
Okay, just the-
Something we can pull up there in the middle of the night or something, just lift it out of the ground, you know, move it over and right in.
Why do we want something for various purposes? As to
Oh.
elevate it up? Sort of minimum width.
If 10 feet maybe is at the bare minimum, it'd be nice to have a little wider.
Thank you.
Maybe it's good into the. Letter of, wait.
355 Maple?
I hear a theme of welcome back, Cotter and Mayhead. Kristen Pianzio here for Velocity, here to talk about trails. If you remember, we got a waiver for sidewalk along the front edge. The approval resolution from the supervisor said, do a trail instead, meet on site, meander around trees, you know, the idea was to do it, and saving, what we have along the frontages. The approval said go to Park and Rec will review it, Trail Committee, and then supervisors, but we went to the Trail Committee and we were beaten down and told, you better go to the Planning Commission with this, so that's why we're here. This has evolved. And I have in front of me a plan. It's the one that you should all have in front of you as well. When we first talked about the trail, and Stephanie wasn't at this meeting, and that's the reason why things have changed. We had a crossing. We had trails along Maple, we had it along Oak, and then we had a crossing on the other side of Oak Drive. And then, and like I said, Stephanie wasn't part of that. And then since we submitted that, Stephanie was like, wait a minute, that's not safe because you'll have ingress and egress coming out. We want you to bring it down. And the whole idea was this is, you know, environmentally sensitive. It's dense. You guys know it's heavily treed and there's crossings down here, but there was a trail across the street. So we were crossing here to pick up the trail. When Stephanie pointed out that that's a safety concern of hers, we looked long and hard at making the connection down to 113. In so doing, we're able to do it. That's what the plan shows, okay? We had to go a little narrower. It's 5 feet. We have to have a little bridge. That's 4 feet. The bridge over, there's a pipe there and there's wetlands. And then we're able to come out and connect to where the other party that's doing this development, they're doing the handicap ramp and the crossing. So we're able to bring it down to 113 with this design. Stephanie and Michelle have reviewed it. They're okay with it. When we went to the Trails Committee, they said, hold on, what about an interior connection? Because we have this, it's kind of a beaten down gravel path around the back, around this diamond. And we didn't want to do an interior connection. We really didn't want to do an interior connection because we don't have a tenant yet. This is private property. We didn't want to invite people onto the property. The tenants wouldn't, you know, we have all kinds of reasons not to have people inside. However, we've come with a compromise of putting the interior connection. I drafted an easement that is with the solicitor's office that allows access for the public to come on. But in the event this area is redeveloped for any reason, this trail would either terminate or be relocated based on this redevelopment. But in the meantime, and I don't know when that may be, that might never be, it may be 10 years, 20 years, we'll have this connection 8 feet wide as well up to the path. So we've done the whole thing, kicking and screaming, but we got there.
And we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
See, was that so hard?
Not for me.
I think that's a great solution. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, right here. Much better.
Yeah, it got a little tricky down there, but they met on site, Stephanie and someone from Michelle's office and our engineer Lindsay, who's here, and of course, John's here from Velocity, and they figured out a way. We had to squeeze it a little bit, got down to 3 feet of buffer along the edge, but that was a way to make it work in considering what all the environmental features that are out there.
And I guess, Lindsay, if I recall, there is a little bit of verge in between the walking area and the edge of the carway.
Yes, correct.
So we got a little grass strip.
Oh, for this piece over here, on Oak Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it changes a lot.
Correct. So for the portion closest to 113, there's about a 2-foot buffer and then the 5-foot sidewalk. Right where so there's a short area, 40 feet, where there's no curb, which that's because the grade, like the drainage needs to go somewhere. It's all uncurbed right now. So the drainage flows downhill into the creek. So that's a 5-foot wide buffer, to provide more buffer for the uncurbed location. And then it goes to a 3-foot buffer back where the curb picks up.
I think I just heard the word great.
I think that's great. You can wear that on
Just for curiosity, so the part that's uncurved, there's a section that's uncurved because water flows over it. Right? And it makes it, then it'll go over that, go through the 5 feet of grass, over the trail and then into that creek.
So
area, the wet area, or whatever it's called.
yes, and that portion of the trail is to be like a boardwalk type of trail.
Okay.
So that the water could flow under it actually, and then we'll have some sort of like a lining over top of that area for the runoff.
So the challenge, if they curved it the whole way,
You can't.
they would have had to put inlets.
Trees.
And get it out there, and that was one of the challenges of trying to make that happen with it being as flat as it is there, but that is also the low point, so. It's a different way of allowing it to be.
I think it'll look
open, so.
Yeah.
Flow
This is
off
more
into
like
the
the map.
wetland area with, I'll say, minimal impact to any, adding any subsurface drainage. Systems,
So the bridge will be a boardwalk type walkway.
Yes.
Okay.
and I think there is a railing that.
Yeah,
That
so
will
we,
be on the back side of it
correct.
as well.
Situation. Anybody have any?
Is that a recommendation from the planning commission?
I will, I'll make a motion that we recommend the trail plan as presented to the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Okay. Though Nord's text them.
All right, so the zoning ordinance text amendment is. I believe you've had for a little while. And it pertains to impervious surfaces and non-conforming buildings. About this, I believe it was last meeting. So the impervious surface amendment is just to clean it up. It hasn't been touched in decades. It was pretty antiquated comparing impervious surfaces to sodded land or unsodded land. And it just didn't seem to fit with today's interpretations. So we went into a little bit more detail to include basically what we find and how we interpret it and enforce the impervious surfaces in the township today. So that was pretty simple. And the non-conforming building section was, like I was saying before, we don't have a requirement for non-conforming expansions of non-conforming buildings. Right now, you have to go to zoning hearing board for anything that doesn't comply with current zoning. You couldn't even do an addition that goes along the same line as the existing non-conforming, which is common in a lot of municipalities. So that is that portion of this proposed text amendment. If you'd like, I can go into detail as to exactly what those conditions are.
I trust them.
Yeah.
The county review?
Yes. Claire did review, Claire, do you want to do your review?
So. Okay, so, this impervious coverage definition. References the net lot area. As part of the calculation for impervious coverage, and so one of the comments was just to make, and then as part of the definition, in this case. Net lot area includes these other areas. So because there's a little bit of clarifying what net lot area means, we would just doing a reference to a definition to make sure that there's. It's clear in the code that the way that net lot area is being defined in this definition for impervious coverage is. A little bit different from how it's used. So we would recommend clarifying reference for that piece. And then we just want to make sure that there's. Just to acknowledge that it's possible that impervious coverage may this definition may result in more impervious coverage. Because of, and I was trying to explain this a little bit. But the way that inclusion of certain areas that would typically be developable land as part of that new net lot area definition. It might result in more land that could be part of that ratio for impervious coverage. And then you that. So that's the way that we interpreted reading that definition, and not sure. It doesn't seem like a typical way of doing. With that little calculation in there, so to make sure that if there's any area that you want to, sure it doesn't end up with higher percentages of impervious coverage, so to be aware of that.
So just walk me through, when I hear net lot area, I think there must be gross lot area, and gross lot area less something equals net lot. Just
Net lot area is typically the, well, Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, I can pull it up. I don't have.
because impervious is gonna be a pretty standard definition, and then it's just what's the denominator, and
Right, I think what Claire was saying was that for, if you have a flag lot, the net area does not include the portion of the pole of the flag lot. So I think that
True.
would be for you, so she's saying, but for impervious coverage, we're saying that. You put that area in, that driveway going back there, it should be included in your impervious coverage, although it's net lot area.
so the driveway would count towards impervious, but the ground wouldn't count towards the net lot area.
Correct.
Mhm.
And I think what Claire is saying is say, if we want it that way, to say in the definitions that there's an exception for net lot area for impervious coverage, just to make it clear.
Why are we making this change? I don't get it. What's the purpose of
The
change?
change is really for impervious coverage, because the impervious coverage definition was, as Mike said, archaic. It was very old, it didn't, we needed to update it.
And
This makes it sound more confusing though, as we're updating it now.
Well. I think
It does make it less confusing. Or current.
Yeah, the reason for these changes was basically to change the definition of impervious surface. Definition of impervious surface did not take into account, understandably, porous paving. Back in the day when this definition was written, it was before any porous paving technology. Nowadays, you can have asphalt be porous and porous pavers, porous concrete, and all the like. And so we are getting these proposals in the township for patios and things. And they're claiming that that they're porous, and they are accurate as long as they're constructed correctly. However, in order to consider them impervious, there needs to be a slew of other safeguards built in with agreements, maintenance agreements, areas set aside for stormwater management, and that sort of thing, because we can't guarantee that they'll remain porous because if you don't maintain it correctly, they get clogged up and they're just impervious. And so one or two homeowners down the line won't know anything about the porous paving requirement, so it becomes a headache.
Okay.
And so we just needed to revisit it before somebody really started to challenge the township regarding their goal
That led you to the net
coverage.
lot area. Now, this doesn't just talk about the flag, it also talks about overhead and underground utility right away.
Yeah, what's that?
Because they are taken out of your net lot area now.
There's net lot area up on the screen. So it already takes out the area line between the street legal right of way line and the ultimate right of way line or equivalent land area of the access strip of the flag lots and the right of ways of overhead and underground.
And it's been like that?
Yes.
That's correct, yes.
Haven't you two impervious coverage before? You just use the straight net line area as shown in the drawing? If it was
Yes,
correct.
yes.
Assuming it was.
Yes, which is typically done.
Yeah.
Well, I have no passion about this whatsoever. So.
But you have to enforce anything, yeah.
I feel strongly that I don't feel.
Yeah.
If you can entertain that, if we could get, even add that as a condition that we'll work out the impervious coverage with staff. With impervious coverage definition. Staff.
So motion to endorse the text amendment with that,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Clare County. Anything you have?
No, I've been getting ready to look at the other.
This is the non-conforming, or do we? We have to cover that?
Oh. Yeah, you didn't have any. Or didn't need to cut you off, that was included in your same review layer, the non-conforming. And it didn't seem like we had any non-conforming buildings. Pretty consistent. It's only one. It's only one. That's
Then I. And then in terms of the community review stuff, the update would be at the October planning commission meeting. Meg and I met with Ann, and Joe last week to talk about some of the edits of the commercial district. So they're working on the clean version of the draft that we saw last month. August, and we will be bringing.
Can you just make sure we get that a little bit in advance? Any other business?
One quick, last night we had our regional planning commission meeting. We're in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. So if you guys have not done so, go online and take the survey. We're gonna keep up for it. So I believe the end of, does that have the QR code on it? Oh, okay. Grab one and please take the survey. So we've already had pretty good response. We'll keep it up till the end of the month.
Hearing nothing else, a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Joe, where's the truck issue made? It's at lower.